Welcome back to the fantasy team review. The Green Bay Packers moving right along. Just did the Detroit Lions. Now we do their division rivals and maybe their rival to win the division this year in the Green Bay Packers. Exciting, young, very young team. Everyone's young. The receivers, the quarterback, the tight ends. The oldest, I guess, is the running backs, but even they are still kind of young. So we'll jump right into it with starting off with the quarterback again. We are recording this on July 25th. So training camps are just kind of getting going. But if you're listening to this in August and there's an injury and we don't talk about it, that's why. And all these numbers you'll see in ADPs are all based off of half PPRs. So Jordan Love takes over for Aaron Rodgers, and it feels like the Green Bay Packers did it again, right? They go from Favre to Rodgers to potentially Jordan Love. We will see. We'll see. I mean, it was awesome last year. 4,100, over 4,100 yards, 32 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. I think he was second in the NFL in touchdowns behind Dak. It's funny because he started off the season hot, and then he had that dip. And I remember everyone saying, maybe we were even saying we got to move on. Jordan Love sucks. He had from week 3 to week 8 or 9, just kind of wasn't very impressive. And then week 10 and on, he was awesome. So just funny how we overreact to things way too much.
They had 4 losses in a row there on late September. And
yep.
So.
Yeah, I see that. Lions, Raiders, Broncos, Vikings. So, but yeah, again, he was awesome last year, only 11 interceptions, couple games even with some rushing production, 1, 2, 3, 4 games of over 30 yards, another 2 over 20 yards. So he's going in round 6 as the QB8. Early round 6 too. This is interesting. His ADP. I mean, he was 6th overall in points per game at 19.4. Do you think he can kind of if everyone stays healthy, because a lot of people were injured last year, do you think he can be QB8 in fantasy, or do you think that's absolute ceiling for him?
Yeah, I think he could get there. I mean, obviously his 3 years sitting on the bench, behind Rodgers had to count for something. He had a little bumpy start, and then as we've seen with other NFL players, they kind of wake up, figure it out about halfway through the season on what their role is. So you got to give Jordan Love some credit on what he did. And now, I mean, he destroyed Dallas in a playoff game, so it's there's a lot of people expecting more now. So
yeah, and we're gonna get to it with all these receivers, and we're talking about just how they're all potentially really damn good. And usually, what that means is you don't know which of the 4 receivers or 2 tight ends to take. We'll take the guy who's throwing them the ball because they're all awesome, right? So. I get it. I'm going to pass on Jordan Love in this range. Again, I just don't normally take quarterbacks this high unless they are rushing quarterbacks and they can run the ball. And Jordan Love can move a little bit, but I don't think he's going to rush more. I'd be surprised if he goes much more than 350 yards rushing. And so what you're asking him to be as the potential top 7 QB or so is 4,500 yards and 35 plus touchdowns, which is possible. He almost kind of did it last year, but I don't want to rely necessarily on that that early, given where some other players, we're talking, just looking at some of the wide receivers going, you're still talking about guys like Keenan Allen, Christian Kirk, Tank Dell going in that range. So still some heavy hitters at other positions. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't be surprised if he throws for 4,300 yards and 35 touchdowns. It's not going to surprise me at all. Josh Jacobs comes over. Kind of surprising they brought him in. I think we were all a little bit surprised. They gave him a decent contract, but really, when you look at the details, it's a 1-year contract. Still only 26 years old. He's going in round 4 as RB12. Kind of a bad year last year. I think he held out and then came in late and was a little overweight and just never really got going. He was not very efficient at all. Barely, he still averaged 12.5 points, but it's not what his 2022 season was, where he was RB4 in points per game and averaged 17.5. I don't know. I'll let you start with Jacobs. Are you in on Jacobs as a top 12 running back this year, as your round 4 pick, as maybe your RB1 or RB2?
Wow. I've had some various earlier, like about a month ago or a couple months ago, I would have said, yeah, Josh Jacobs. I think I've soured on him a little bit, and I don't know. I think he's going to get the ball a lot, but last year was an example of I think a contract that got in the way, and all that other crap. And the guy never really started the season very well, so never got rolling. And I know the Raiders were kind of a mess offensively and stuff like that, but oh man, Josh Jacobs. Yeah, so as an RB2, where's he go? Like a 6th round?
No. He's in round 4, early round 4.
No, I'm not. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, he's technically going as an RB1. He's the RB12 overall. But at this point, he could be your second running back that you're taking. Unless you take 3 receivers right away or something.
Yeah, I think I'm.
Yeah, I think I'm out too. I mean, okay, so here's the guy going right above him: Isaiah Pacheco or Josh Jacobs.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Pacheco. You just don't get that consistent, for the whole game or for the whole season. You get good games here, and he looks wonderful in the playoffs. And I don't know, man.
Yeah, he's a hard one. I'm kind of there with you. Like, I don't think I want either one of those guys. Okay, Rachaad White or Josh Jacobs?
White in the passing game, I'd say, makes up. I know his rushing numbers weren't great. Wow, these guys are close, man. I mean,
and then James Cook is the next one.
Wow.
Or Jacobs. So maybe you will draft him.
These are some tough choices. Yeah, somebody's got to draft them, and somebody's gonna do something.
Yeah, I'm worried about last year and the production. I understand, okay, he was supposed to start slow. He started slow. He had 233 carries and rushed for 805 yards. Like, he averaged 3.5 yards per carry.
Yeah,
that's 37 catches. Like, I know they weren't throwing the ball a lot and stuff. Zamir White came in at the end of the year for Jacobs, and he those last 4 games that Zamir White started, he averaged 4.73 yards per attempt behind the same offensive line. It just makes me nervous, like, seeing that giant dip in production on a guy who is young but is also entering his 6th season. He didn't have an elite season until year 4. And for Dynasty, I was saying, I'm going to sell those guys. You don't have your best season as a running back is 4 years into your career. I'm going to sell you at your peak. And then he has a terrible season. And now he's going to a team that historically uses multiple running backs. Like Matt LaFleur, he is always using multiple running backs, consistently. So even when he was the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans, and he didn't want to give Derrick Henry the ball, and he was using Dion Lewis, was it? I believe. Yeah. Like, even at that point, 2018. Yeah, exactly. Dion Lewis that year, when Derrick Henry's on the team, He had 155 carries and 60 catches in 2018. Dion Lewis, and you have freaking Derrick Henry on your team. Derrick Henry had, just for reference, 215 carries. What are we doing? So he always uses multiple running backs, always, even when he had Aaron Jones, prime Aaron Jones. So that has to factor in a little bit. I'm just a little bit worried. But that being said, would I be surprised if Josh Jacobs has, 12 rushing touchdowns? No, because this should be a good offense. So, yeah, I'm worried. I might just hopefully pass on running back there. And, the receivers going around that range, Michael Pittman, Devontae Smith, Amari Cooper, DK Metcalf, I might just lean towards those guys.
Josh Jacobs, in 2022, he had 340 carries. That's a lot. So,
yeah,
he's had significant carries in his 5 years in the NFL. So,
in almost 400 touches, and historically, when you have that many touches, your numbers dip for sure the next season. On a efficiency base. Marshawn Lloyd is being drafted round 12, actually. So, still up there. I loved him. I think we both really liked him coming out of USC in college, super explosive type of player. Never really handled a workload in college at all. They just didn't really use him. He only had 116 carries last year. 13 catches. I really like him. I know the team really, really likes him. They drafted him in the 3rd round. Part of the reason why I'm worried about Josh Jacobs is I think Lloyd could potentially take him off the field in 2-minute drills and stuff like that. Now, is he going to be a 3rd down guy? I don't know. You need to be able to block, but in 2-minute drills where you catch potentially 3-4 passes in a 2-minute drill as a running back, I don't know. I kind of like Lloyd. I like taking a shot on him. I think he's going to be potentially usable as a flex in heavy bye weeks. And then he has the upside of if Jacobs sucks or Jacobs gets hurt. So do you like Marshawn Lloyd here, round 12? So, pretty late in the draft, at the end of round 12, by the way. So,
yeah, I think you pretty much explained it just a few minutes ago, talking about LaFleur, uses, multiple running backs. So you think this guy's going to get a chance here his rookie year.
Yep. And again, you're talking, 13th round, 12th round pick. There's not a whole lot of risk there. So, all right, the wide receivers are a mess. So I'm just going to ask you, without ADP and where you have to draft them, Jayden Reed, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, who would you take if you had to choose one of those guys without any draft round or whatever? Who would you want out of those 4?
I think Reed 1, and I think Watson 2, and then Doubs.
Yeah.
I think that's, the thing with Watson, he's got a chronic problem with his hamstring, and they sent him to some specialist to get it figured out. So I think when he plays, he's good. We've seen it for a couple of years. Problem is he can't stay healthy.
Yeah. And apparently what it was is he had one hamstring bigger than the other, and they can fix that. I think they said Alvin Kamara had that a couple of years ago and it actually worked. Apparently they can fix that. I don't know exactly how, but hopefully they do get it fixed. So here's how I picture these. I agree with you. I think it's in a vacuum without knowing draft round. I think I lean Jayden Reed, Watson, Doubs, Wicks potentially, right? Wicks, Doubs, you can interchange them. But if I had to put money on a Packers someone said there's a Packers wide receiver. He finished as wide receiver 21 in points per game. I'm putting my money on Jayden Reed. If I had to put money and someone came to me and said there's a Packers wide receiver and they finished wide receiver 13 per game, my money's on Christian Watson. So I think he has that potential to be, kind of a league winner in a sense of being a top 15 guy. But if I had to put money on just someone having a better fantasy season, I think it's Jayden Reed. but I don't know about Jayden Reed's upside. The issue with all of this is that Jayden Reed's going in round 6, and Christian Watson's going in round 7. But I thought it was actually a little bit later than that. So I'm just going to double check that. So Jayden Reed is 72 overall, Christian Watson 88. So he's going 16 picks later, a round and a half later. I'm going to take the discount on Watson versus Reed in round 6. I'll take Watson at the end of round 7 because we just had this hesitation on I don't know who wide receiver 1 is. So I'll take the guy who has a round and a half discount, I think, if I'm going to take one of them. So, but Jayden Reed was awesome last year. He was a rookie. He scored 10 touchdowns, which I don't know if people realize that. He had 10 total touchdowns. He could even potentially do work on the ground. He had a stretch there where he had 3, 2, and 4 carries, and then he got hurt, and they stopped giving him the ball. But he could potentially end the season with 20, 25 carries or something. But yeah, I don't want to take Jayden Reed in the 6th round. He feels like last year's Christian Watson a little bit. I think I'll take the discount on Watson. So now knowing draft capital, do you still kind of lean Reed over Watson, or do you take the discount with Watson?
Yeah, I think because of that injury history, I mean, that's the thing that bothers me.
Yeah.
Reed was a rookie last year, but obviously he figured it out pretty quick. So I think there could be more, there could be more to see, more to give. I thought he was part of a return game too. So I don't know if that
he might have been.
Yeah, punt returns.
Let's see. He had 11 punt returns. Yeah. So yeah, about almost a little less than 1 a game. So yeah, if you get fantasy points there for sure. The right answer might just be avoid both these guys because they could just spread the ball around and run the ball with Josh Jacobs, and none of these guys you're going to be able to predict who's going to go off. They're going to be way too inconsistent. One of them's going to have a good game because you have Romeo Doubs who led this team in targets. The team really, really likes him. And the only thing I think I can be sure about with the Packers receiving core is that the team loves Romeo Doubs, and he's going to be out there way more than we like as fantasy players because he's going to take away from Jayden Reed. He's going to take Jayden Reed or Christian Watson off the field a lot. So that just throws another wrench. If we're talking about just Reed and Watson, both of them can be good. But we're talking about a third guy who I personally think is going to be on the field 70, 80% of the time. And unless they're in 2 wide receiver sets or 3 wide receiver sets, either Reed or Watson's going to be off the field. For fantasy, I don't see a whole lot of upside for Doubs. If someone gets hurt, it's a different story. Could he finish as a top 36 guy? Yeah. But, you just look at last year, he had 60 catches, 674 yards, 8 touchdowns. He's wide receiver 46. So I'm not really going to worry about Romeo Doubs. But I might take a shot on Dontavian Wicks, who another wrench in everything. Some people think he might be the best wide receiver on the Packers. He's the best route runner and he flashed last year. And so if I do want to, my strategy here might be just, I want a piece of the Packers offense passing game. I'm going to take Dontavian Wicks in round 13 and just hope he hits, so any interest in Doubs or Wicks for you, Dad, or not really?
Not really. Waiver wire pickups or something. I know Doubs will probably get drafted.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's not my flavor, I don't think.
No. I mean, Wicks will get drafted too. He's going around 13, but he could easily be dropped after 2 weeks if he doesn't do anything. So, yeah, it's kind of a mess. And that's why I said at the top, maybe we just take the guy who's throwing them the ball, right? Because he has a lot of freaking options. That's not even mentioning, I don't even have a graphic, the 2 tight ends. And Musgrave, who's being drafted around 13, and Tucker Kraft, who is not being drafted. I think he had an injury to start camp, by the way. So I was kind of on the debate of Tucker Kraft could be just as good as Musgrave, and he kind of was last year. Once Musgrave got hurt, he put up basically the same numbers as Musgrave. But now, if he's starting tore both Kraft and Tom both tore a pectoral muscle while lifting weights. So if he's going to miss time, I think that, okay, you can take a shot on Musgrave, but I think he's more of a waiver wire guy anyways, like tight end. I don't think there's much to talk about there. So anything else on these Packers?
Yeah, I don't think so.
So if you had to,
just the tight ends are, there's just too many mouths to feed, I think, in the whole, it's hard enough trying to figure out the two better wide receivers, so.
Yeah. No, I agree there. I agree. So yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I don't know how many Packers I'm going to be rostering. Really, I'm not going to be drafting Love in round 6. That's just not how I play the QB position. I think I'm out on Jacobs in round 4. I think I'm out on Reed in round 6. Maybe Christian Watson and maybe Dontavian Wicks. So unfortunately, I might not be rostering a lot of Packers, but they're going to be a good team. They're going to be in contention for the division. I think they're going to be there with the Lions, kind of going back and forth. So
I think you're right.
Yeah, but we'll be back as I pull up the alphabetical order list. Any guesses on who's after the Green Bay Packers alphabetically? I'm trying to think. Texans?
Houston Texans.
All right. Well, there's another interesting wide receiver room to talk about. So we'll be back with the Houston Texans. Help us get to 500 subscribers. We are 15 away at the time of recording. So catch you guys all in the next video.